The XE is yet another banger shape from Vaxee, but in 2022, Vaxee know it's time to cut the cord. With the XE, Vaxee have finally brought the heat with the one feature that everyone has been asking for. What? Now, miss me with wireless? It's got a freaking emoji button. Look at it. My Discord game is going to be fire. Right, first up, let's get the obvious out of the way. Yes, this mouse still isn't wireless, but if you click on the video now, you'll be sleeping on one of the best new shapes dropped this year, and arguably one of the best mice from Vaxee. The MP01 and Outset series are asymmetric, eSports focused mice with a no compromise approach to their features. This made them distinctly Vaxee, but also an acquired taste, kind of like a teenage Get Review circa 2004. With the XE being both gaming and productivity focused, it allowed Vaxee to compromise on some of their strict eSports design, and the result is a symmetrical shape that feels like it will click for a lot more people. Fun fact, I didn't know how to say the name of this mouse, so I did a bit of Google research, and apparently XE is a gender neutral pronoun and it's pronounced Z. So tip of the hat to good guy Vaxee for being an inclusivity trailblazer and making, to my knowledge, the first they them peripheral available in pink or blue BT dubs. Talking appearances, the Z comes in a veritable cornucopia of interesting colourways, from Sad Boy Monochrome to the Peanut Butter Jelly Time and everything in between. In addition to giving the mouse a fun look, they're also the same full matte finish we saw Vaxee start to offer on their previous mice, and I am totally here for it. It's grippy without being too abrasive, and I think the one-tone finish, at least to me, is a lot cleaner. Initial shape impressions getting it in hand, I was surprised how close it felt to the Logitech G Pro X. Though with the Z there's been some nips and tucks in the front and they've scooched that bulk into the back. If you're a claw player and found that the GPX didn't have enough jelly to lock your palm onto, then think of the Z as a kind of GPX Kardashian edition with a lot more flared and pronounced rear hump. The comparisons to the GPX mean that you should expect a medium to large shape too. I can just about fingertip this mouse with 20 by 10 centimeter hands, but honestly, it's a reach and felt much more natural for me to claw or even palm. As a side note, the weight is lower in this mouse at around 67 grams, but if you buy Vaxee, you're likely on that Zowie trip, know what you're in for, and aren't looking for anything much lighter. Trying to tell Vaxee to reduce weights is probably about as worthwhile as asking Daddy Elon to start caring about worker conditions. So let's say you're happy with the thicker than a bowl of oatmeal GPX, but what about build, specs, click and scroll? Specs continue to be eSports class and will be up on screen for you to check out if you'd like, but when it comes to build quality, Vaxee remain top class, and the Z is no exception. The overseers in whatever quality control gulag this mouse is assembled in are doing a great job, because try as I might, I couldn't find major fault with its assembly. If I was going to nitpick, the coating has some overspray under the front clicks, but you need to be OCD, obsessing over your mouse from every ungodly angle, to even possibly have a chance of noticing that. Main thing is you won't find any creak, rattle, flex, and the click tuning feels precise, snappy, and intentional. Talking clicks, despite using heavier Huano 70G switches this time around, the main clicks are feather light and on an absolute hair trigger. In fact, I've accidentally actuated them a few times when repositioning the mouse and fanned the hammer into thin air on Cassidy. I tested and this wasn't a slam click, rather my chubby sausage fingers laying across the clicks. Regardless, it was something that happened more than a handful of times and isn't something that's typically present in other mice I use. Certainly one to potentially be aware of if, like me, you apparently slam the mouse around with all the dexterity of Harambe. The biggest dub for general usability is the removal of the frankly obnoxious optical wheel for something that, whilst remaining tactile and defined, doesn't let out a chain smoker's death rattle every time you scroll it. Flipping the little blue duck egg on its back to take a look at its tender underbelly, we see that Vaxee has abandoned the previous skate design to go with a sort of G303 SE pair of large oval blobs. Bad news for all the Vaxee skate harvesters hoping to use their spare core pads on this new model. Good news for overall feel though. Despite being initially a bit rough, once these skates were broken in, they gave a smooth, controlled glide which suited the mouse, and I felt no reason to replace them with aftermarkets. Also, Vaxee continue to adopt the Amish approach to peripherals, rejecting the sinful modernity of software and instead opt to keep it all native on the device with physical buttons and indicators along the base. The usual suspects are here: DPI, poll rate and debounce time, though some feel a bit redundant TBH. Why you'd opt for anything less than 1,000 polling on a wired mouse eludes me, but I'm happy to be actually mansplained to as to why I'm wrong and should feel bad about it in the comments section down below. At this point, I think I've edged you long enough. Let's talk about the star of the show on this mouse. Yes, the emoji button. Vaxee have given you an extra multi-function button on top of the mouse that can do things like screenshot or page down for game shortcuts. But why would you use any of these when it unlocks the other competitive feature of the hidden emoji menu in Windows? When you do lose a gunfight, you will be poised and ready to spam ACR abuse at your opponent with such ferocity that there'll be no possible comeback to your superior chat skills. Ask yourself then, who's the real winner? So at this point, we've spoken about every possible aspect of the mouse, save for probably the most contentious one, the cable. The Z remains a wired mouse using a detachable USB-C cable this time around, which has a little plastic trident that kind of looks like a fork you get bundled in a cup noodle. The cable itself is pretty consistent with other Vaxee mice, so if you've used one, you know what to expect. However, you should probably try to keep it in a bungee for the best results. For me, whilst the cable itself was fine, the weight of the stress relief connector made the mouse noticeably more front heavy with my grip, so I tried swapping out the cable for a USB-C paracord I had to hand. Despite only being around 2 grams less in total, I immediately noticed a difference and the mouse felt much more balanced, at least in a fingertip grip. The positive here being a USB-C connection, you don't need to open up your mouse to use an aftermarket cord with it, so I'd suggest at the very least trying an alternate lighter weight USB-C cable to see how you get on with it, as it could make all the difference to you too. Now, dropping the memes to say I was disappointed that the Z was still wired would be fair. I appreciate that Vaxee want to get it perfect before they cut the cord and aren't a fan of reusing existing shapes, but honestly at this point, regardless of how great the Z feels, and let's be real, it does feel great, a lot of the community have already jumped ship to wireless. My concern is that no mouse, Vaxee or otherwise, is likely to be enough to get them to reconnect the cord and give a shot to. I've been Get Reviews, this has been my thoughts on the Vaxee Z, and if you've enjoyed my terrible takes, boomer memes and dad jokes, like, subscribe, and I'll see you in the next.